Good afternoon, and welcome to another Behind the Screens Friday with me, Logan.
And me, Brandon.
And today we're going to be doing world building from two different perspectives.
Two.
We were going to do it from one, and then we both came to this video with totally different ideas of how to world build.
The realization that our brains work differently, and hey, that's perfect because yours probably does too.
I'm sure there's at least two of you out there.
Yeah, probably, hopefully. So, I'd like to start us off here.
Please,
Logan,
Brandon.
start us off with what was your first step? What's the very first thing you do when you're going to, start your world?
Typically, whenever I go and I start world building, I like to think of the actual frame of the campaign. Like,
Okay.
what is going on? Like, what is the actual foundation of this setting? For instance, like if we talk about the campaign we're in right now, immediately I knew I wanted a Spelljammer campaign. So I was like, okay, space is the setting. Now, what about the planets? So I had to pick a solar system. Did I make one up, or did I have to come up with everything? For those of you out there, I'm an idiot, and I made up every single planet, their distances, their sizes, orbital period, everything, because I think too much about these things.
That's a good point.
And that's my world building. Like, I have to have that knowledge, that detailed framework knowledge, where I had to lay this all out. Like, I had to, at the very beginning, have all my planets. And then from those planets, I worked. I was like, okay, so if this solar system is my frame, now I need to fill the frame with everything else.
Sure.
So
it's interesting. So you like to dive deep and like you start the novel. Like
I do,
you do like to have very descriptive details of some would say a large amount of information. But does that break down all the way into cities?
Typically, no.
Okay.
So with the campaign framework, I would not touch on cities at all. Unless
Good.
it's only taking place in one specific city, then that whole city is your framework.
Sure.
But if it's, for instance, with the campaign now, Torvengard is a city. It's also the place that you start out in. It's all that you know to begin with, but that wasn't the framework.
Right.
I had to get there eventually whenever we talked about your character and
Sure.
how the character would shape out. We started from there, but I had to know the framework, the entire solar system. If I wanted to expand past that, I did go further, like if this is happening in the solar system, what's happening beyond to make beyond the solar system interesting. But truthfully, that was later planning. That was like, I have this framework now. Let me put another framework right next to it so that way I have a whole wall of frames of pictures.
Okay. That makes sense.
In the weirdest way, yeah.
So, okay, with that in mind, you have the framework started.
Yep.
That's flushed out. What would be your next step?
So the next step is starting with the characters themselves. So
of the campaign.
Yep.
Okay.
That's typically where, okay, you come to your players and you say, I have this framework. I want to build a world in. I have some ideas of where this might go out. Like I might have a couple of chapters. Or maybe even just chapter titles. And by chapter titles, that's more a metaphor of like, I want this big bad guy to eventually become a problem. I want this eventually to become a problem. So there's small nuggets in your frame that are already there that create the issues that the story is going to revolve around. You want to tell the story around something, in my opinion. So you start off with a framework that starts to frame the issue.
Most would say that's important.
Yeah. Absolutely. And then once you kind of have that general idea, that's when you come to the players and you say, hey, this is the campaign I'm thinking about running.
Mm-hmm.
This is about the direction. This is what you can expect from it. If this is what you're expecting, what do you want to play? What does your character in this world look like?
Okay.
And you just start from there.
Got it.
You can roll it in many different ways, however you want to plan that. You can give your characters more information and tell them fit this mold, or you can start from that framework and say, here's the framework. What interests you? Let's make a character to fit that. And it's really table dependent. Table dependent, DM dependent, however you guys want to handle it would be from there. And both are right. Neither are a wrong answer. I think Next campaign, I would really like to try to figure out, if this is the framework, let's build the characters and let the full story unfold around this one. Because whenever I approached you about this campaign, it was, here's my framework, here's your starting place,
Right.
and everything around the starting place. Like, I gave you Torvengard and said, run. Instead of, I gave you a solar system and said, where are you in the solar system?
Right.
And there's two different ways I could have done that. I just chose to narrow it down a little bit.
Sure. Well, there's nothing wrong with that. So, okay. So now you have the middle ground fixed. You're getting ready for the campaign. You've got kind of the players situated in that, that timeline between this is the campaign I want to run, players giving you their characters, and that session 0, session 1, what are you doing in that moment then?
Immediately, I'm going to start making things that are important to the characters. I want to take anything that they gave me in their backstory, and I want to make it important. Somehow, I want to make it matter. That way, their characters actually tied into the story itself. No matter the framework that I started out as. Even if it's something very strict of like, hey, this is the mold I want your characters to fit, make that character. I want to make sure that their character fits that mold and is there for a reason. Or on the flip side of where I just say, what's your character?
Right.
I want that character to be important to the story. Like, obviously, if I go from that route, I'm going to build the entire story off of that character or the characters themselves. And so pieces of them is going to start unfolding in the story. Or pieces of the story can unfold within the characters. It kind of goes vice versa on that one.
Okay. So you've really got, at that point, you're really flushed out. So I think the last question I'd have for you is, so now that you because world building continues, so now what do you do from that session 1 on? Like, what does that look like then?
Yeah, so for session 1, I would do anything to get the ball rolling towards the large story. If the large story has to take place, after X, X, and X happen, work towards the first X. If you think about it like a book, think about the climax and what it's going to take to get there.
Right.
Or just kind of start. Like, this is the world that you guys are starting in and the things shaping around it. Where do your characters go? And there's truly two ways to go about that. You can flush out everything around you and have a full system and hope your characters are invested in that system because that's what you spent your time on and that's what you know. Or you can get a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of planet A, a little bit of planet B, a lot of planet C. You're going to make planet C really interesting and hope they're going to go there, but focus on just the big things. Get all the big things out of the way, the most important NPCs, who they're immediately going to interact with, who are their adversaries, who's in their corner, are there lots of shops, magic items are the things you want to consider, monsters, all of that immediately you want to start rolling in to that first session, and then kind of just start as the sessions unfold, that story starts to unfold with you.
Okay. Yeah, I can see where that would. I could see where that framework would work really well. Yeah. I even think that I think that helps me a lot on some of my thoughts.
The easiest way, truly, I've thought about it is, I think about this as like storytelling because it is, right? So if I'm trying to tell a story, I know maybe the first couple chapters, and then everything. Then I just want to get to an end point.
Right.
In this aspect, I want the endpoint to be collaborative. So the endpoint is very ambiguous. I don't know exactly where Carson's going to end up, but I know what's going on in the background. I know who's doing what in the background. So there's a story there. Whether you take place in it or not, that's fine. That's up to you, truly. But together we're going to get there.
Right.
So I have the first chapter, and then after session 1, I've had the second chapter. And the next thing you know, the whole book's written.
Sure. Well, awesome. Anything else you want to add on into that as a conclusion?
You can't do it wrong. Don't spend too much on one thing because inevitably they're not going to get into that.
That's a very good point.
And if you do that, if you spend so much time that you have this giant wealth of knowledge and the players completely ignore it, don't throw it away. save those ideas. Either implement them organically later on. Maybe that's something they come back to and they're like, how did I miss this in the first go round? Or just reflavor it. If you're really that dead set on using it, be like, oh well, that's not a whale anymore, it's a shark. It still looks the same. It's a fish. Don't tell me. I know whales are not fish, but it has.
They're mammals.
It has flippers. It swims. It has a mouth in front of it. It has 2 eyes, probably. Like it has the same shape, right? So just reskin it.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know. Where do you start, Brandon?
I've ran a few campaigns now, and so it's interesting to look back, because on my very first one, I started with an island, and there's a piece of me, I've completely created an entire world now with 5 full continents, and on 4 of those, I'm flushed out from a generic standpoint of like a whole, but I didn't do that initially.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it started with one offset island of one of the continents when I started my first campaign, and then before I started my second one, I was like, okay, what do I want this world to look like? And so I just literally started at the top, like I was just looking down an eyeglass. So I go, okay, 5 continents, that's really cool. I've gone as far as, I've made a map. So like I made, what did I want the structure to look like? And then I just kept diving, like I just put on the next lens, and then I would just drop in. But I was careful not to go, I say that, I wasn't, because unnecessarily so, I have cities and continents that you guys have never been to.
Mm-hmm.
Why do I have those cities? It's not necessary, probably too time consuming, but a part of me made, if I was going to create the continent, I should make a city, and then if we ever flow in that direction, then I can grow it. And so that's the way I went. So I have a bunch of cities, that don't have anything in them, which is perfectly fine.
But they're at least a starting point,
Correct.
Is what you're saying.
Yeah, so I took it as like, if I create 20% of the world, meaning I have a world, a continent, and then a city, now when I go to create what I want to be the campaign, I can start with that city and then grow from there. So if I create the framework, that's my framework, I guess. My framework is the continents. I'll go down to the cities, and now I have a world and a structure. And then now I have something that I can now take and go, okay, here's our starting point, and now I can kind of morph out from there and be specific and dive into this section.
Yeah. So whenever you start diving in, do you have that idea of where you want the players to dive in? Like, do you have a big bad picked out before you even begin a campaign, or does that unfold? How's that look for you?
I've done both.
Yeah.
So I've done one where...
And do you have a preference?
It can be very difficult, because when you have a big bad evil guy from the start, sometimes, and I'm very guilty of this, putting a timeline on things, and it can hurt the campaign.
Mm-hmm.
I've learned the hard way. And so when you have that big bad evil guy initially, it kind of puts, depending on player choices, it changes the outcome. So not having a big bad evil guy, starting with like, hey, this is where we're going to start, and just allowing the party to like flow and I grow my world in the direction that the party's going. And then, oh, okay, so this, the party's doing this, these quests have happened. Okay, this guy maybe kind of turns evil from this, or like I see this situation, they've flown into this country, and I could maybe make this king go crazy or whatever have you.
Mm-hmm. This
is a perfect fit for the mold that they've allowed to happen. This would give them a pull into that.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Gotcha.
Which I guess that ties directly back into when I get my player's character sheet. I will go, okay, Logan is playing this. I plan on doing or aiming to have 4 arcs in this, because I look at it in the same storytelling fashion.
Mm-hmm.
And I like to go, okay, if I do 3 to 5 arcs, where can I fit each of my players in, so saying that way everybody feels wanted and everybody feels that pull to the story.
Yeah.
So, in arc 2 is Logan's chance, to do this, but arc 1 will be Bob's choice, to do this.
Okay.
This is his moment, his pull, and then we build off that into the next guy, and then maybe the next arc is 2 characters because their backstory is really aligned well, and I can find a way to pull that together. You know, I like to interweave the characters very heavily. At least I try my best. I find that more fun than anything else, is to help just weave the characters' backstories to my story.
Oh yeah, because they're tied to it. They're invested, hopefully, at the least.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah. Okay. So, whenever you do get your characters, do you tell your characters where to start? Like, this is the setting, or do you say, hey, you know, like, do you tell them these races and these classes? Or you're in this city, so this is going to be typical? Or do you just say, you want to play a bugbear? Cool. This is how we're going to make that work.
I think I've been option B most of the time.
You've been pretty forgiving, oh yeah.
Yeah, I think you would be able to know best.
Yeah.
I don't think I really give much parameters. I think maybe there's a few species I go, it just doesn't make sense to be here. But if you want it, let's make it happen. But we better come up with a really good reason for this to be. But I really don't. I think it kind of adds a fun element, albeit it makes world building kind of difficult when, I don't know, there's, what is there, like 100 plus species now from all the books? And they're all enticing to every player, I'm sure, at different points. But when you have to find a home for those 100 species or find a way to make them make sense to the world, it definitely changes.
Yeah.
So I can definitely see a limitation. But no, I think I care more about a player being creative and creating something that they want to truly play within reason. And finding a way to fit it to my story, because I know that will mean that they will love to be around the table to play the character.
Yeah.
You know, instead of the ladder where you go, okay, you can only be, you know, X, you know, and you can only be these 2 classes, you know, albeit that maybe there's a place for it in certain little one-shots and stuff like that. But in a big setting, I just feel like a player is just going to kind of shrink to a shell and be like, dang, well, I guess I'll play a wizard. I never really had a want to do that. But I'll do it, you know. So
you try not to shoehorn them into any kind of inkling of what their character's going to be.
Yeah, I'd much rather you create it. Let's find a way to implement it, and then I'm going to do my work on the back end to hopefully do the same thing with your backstory, and we can find a reason to make your character want to be in this starting location. And let's make that happen. You know, that gives your character a reason to be traveling or a reason to be doing this. Now your character is starting out with a purpose, and then that also helps the game maybe start from that purpose, you know.
Okay. So you've got the campaign framework, you've got your characters. What's your next step? What's your session 0 maybe if we're there, or session 1 if we're already there?
Yeah, session 0 would be just making sure that I'm kind of meeting the guidelines of what you wanted as a player. So like, let me fill in this. I had that note that said show not tell. I want to show you that your character's part of this world. Not that this world was just created in the lab by guys in white coats that you don't feel any pull to whatsoever.
Okay.
You know, it's like if you come to me with this cool backstory that you have orcs, just going super generic here, orcs had this big pull, raided your town, you know, you were kidnapped or killed your family, and I didn't have that initially. I will have that, and I'm going to have a really strong pull towards that for you, and you're going to feel that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So my session 0 would hopefully lay that groundwork that you see that tie-in. Let's go over like that character. You feel the pull from, you feel that pull, make sure that we're on the same page, and then like, yeah, rolling into the session 0. From a world building perspective, you know, I probably flushed out, I'll make different tiers of cities. So like this maybe low tier of a village, you know, maybe only has like one inn, a general store, maybe a couple of small ones. The next one up, you know, now we break into a magic shop, some other things. In the larger cities, maybe that's when I'll start to have like multiples of stuff, just to try to keep it simple. I always feel like it's good to have maybe a couple different options for shops, you know, in a large city.
Yeah.
But you can definitely overwork yourself to create multiple inns, multiple shops in a city that maybe isn't very large for an unnecessary thing. I get it might make sense to the story. I get it. But does it benefit the characters or you to have 4 different taverns and inns in a smaller city that you're trying to keep track of? And for what purpose did you make them all?
Mm.
You know, if there's a need for it, you can come up with it on the fly. I've made a little document, and maybe this is a good point too, that I have different species that are really common, and I'll have I think I have it's 8 or 10 names for each one.
Oh yeah.
And then you could do the same thing even for shops. You could make just 5 shop names, fill up 1 page, whatever, just with 5 inn names, 5 magic shops. So if you needed to pull it out, put a little line next to it, but this is in, Torvengard. And so you can add it later or whatever have you.
Yeah.
Because you added that shop in.
Gotcha. Okay. That's not a bad idea instead of trying to come up with names on the spot because...
Yeah. It can be tough.
Oh, yeah. No kidding.
So, I mean, from that session 1, I'm just following the organic path that hopefully the party makes. In the free time. If you truly enjoy it, you can just, start in a radius and go, okay, this city's next. I'll flush this out. This city's next, I'll flush this out, because if your party's playing in that one city, maybe you're just kind of looking to continue that build, but you don't want to kill yourself, but you put a couple of hours to it a week because you're just enjoying it, and then pretty soon, now you're really flushing it out.
Yeah.
And I will say it comes with time.
True.
We've played in my world now for years. It just naturally has built itself.
Yeah.
Which is great. I'll tell you from the flip side, once you put the work in a little bit, it makes your life pretty easy because all of a sudden, hey, I already did this 3 years ago.
Yeah.
I have to kind of remind myself, look at my notes, but I don't have to do anything. I can just pull this up, and this is all good.
Absolutely. And I was going to say the same thing is once you get that ball rolling, it just keeps rolling.
Yeah.
Use that momentum to just randomly flesh out the characters and flesh out the world a little bit. As one thing happens here, and maybe that inspires you elsewhere. So just jot it down.
Absolutely.
You don't have to go into detail, but just even if it's just a quick, simple note of, on the planet Yopra, there's a gas giant.
Right.
It could seriously be as simple as that. Gas giant's a problem for me in 10 days trying to figure out, is that a gas giant planet or is that a giant that is made of gas? Who knows?
True. And I think another thing on that perspective is if the party gives you a push for something to be in your world,
listen to him.
Take it.
Yes.
Yes. You might not have, that might contradict everything that you thought. As long as it's not super out there and just kind of ruins it. But if it's something you go, okay, not what I intended for this place or for that area, but these guys think that would be really cool or this would have a good pull, that'll only make your party want to be part of that world even more.
Absolutely.
And just finding ways to mix in the opinions of the characters and the players into your world just makes it that much more exciting.
Yeah. If you can somehow implement them into the story, instead of the story being oh, this is happening around them, they're living in that story.
Yes.
That is exactly happening to them. So while you have it in your head of, this is happening and this is happening, in their head that is happening to them. So it's unfolding in front of them.
Correct.
So whenever they tell you an assumption or a possibility, that's because that's in there. That's your world has implied that to them.
Right.
So just go ahead and do it.
Right.
If it fits, obviously, if it fits. It's not always going to be an exact science on that one. But their minds are already going there because that's where you've led them. You probably led them there for a reason.
And which is a really important point. You see your world building from only, for lack of a better phrase here, from the God perspective above it all.
Yeah.
Your players see your world building from the street. And so they get to see it as you flush it out to them. So when those ideas come between you and them organically like that, I don't know that you could have a better moment to add, to really consider adding that into the story and adding that into that world, because that is what they are seeing from what, like you said, from their eyes. Boy, is that a beautiful thing.
Yeah. It feels more rewarding in that sense.
Yes, I agree.
Absolutely.
Cool. Well, I don't think I really have anything else, but I think that's
two
pretty interesting perspectives.
Yeah. The only thing I do have is as you're going along and you're running games, take notes. If you're the DM and you say something, write that down. Like, make what you say part of your lore. It's really convenient to record all of our episodes because I can just watch it back before I play the next time and be like, this is exactly what I said. This has importance, and I get to make it have importance now. If I was not recording myself, I just simply take notes. Like, I have a blank piece of page for this session, and throughout that session, if they take a long rest, I'll mark it down. If they do this, I'll mark it down. Anytime they achieve something, I mark it down just for my future notes. That way I can look what they just did and go, okay, here's what they did. Here's how I make next session important based off of last session. It's always building off of what's there.
Correct. And like, I guess, yeah, that can tie directly to the world building of like, if they plan on moving in this direction, you know that, okay, they were going to go to this city in 5 days. Well, they just took 4 days, and one day they're going to go there. So by next session, I better at least have a good starting point on this city or like where they're moving, because I need to be comfortable enough to be able to be present and not like just stressing, trying to improv things in.
Yeah,
you know,
you need that at least 20%.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, hey, thanks guys for tuning in.
Thank you
For our friendly little discussion here.
Yeah.
Don't forget to catch us next Friday as we go over more things from behind the screen.
And tune in Monday for Roll Call Monday if you're a player and you want a little bit of advice.
And that goes without being said, our podcast that comes out on Fridays. This is Friday. Wednesdays. On Wednesday, we release our podcast called Commander's Log. As I tongue twist my way around this, we'd appreciate you listening and watching us over there.
Fridays at noon, and Mondays at noon, and Wednesdays at noon.
It's just all the time at noon.
Yeah. Just check us out at noon. That's all you need to know.
That's our new slogan. Guys, we'll
Thank
see
you
you
guys.
next week.